It's time for 41 is the Mic, a weekly Chiefs podcast with Nick Jacobs of KSHB 41 and Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. 41 is the Mic starts now.
Welcome, everyone. A victory edition of 41 is the Mic. We haven't had a chance to do that in a while. I am Matt Derrick with Chiefs Digest alongside split safeties enthusiast Nick Jacobs from KSHB 41. Nick, Chiefs 22-9 winners over the Giants. Wasn't always easy, but in the second half, the Chiefs put the gas down and put the Giants away. They are no longer winless in the Big Apple against the Giants.
Yeah, that's the biggest accomplishment out of the whole thing is that given that you had six other coaches, well, technically five other coaches, Andy's the sixth, but you had six coaches in Chiefs history all go winless there. And you think about some of the names that went winless there between Marv Levy, Frank Gantz, Malkovich, and then Marty Schottenheimer, Vermeil, Reed. And now Reed's the first one to slay that New York Dragon. That's an accomplishment in itself. And I was thinking about that number whenever like the game's going on. I was like, Matt's right. It really might be cursed when it goes to New Jersey. It might just be something about that. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the big things you got to take away from it is they were able to battle through it and come away with their first victory of the 2025 season.
Yeah, and it didn't always look easy, and we'll probably talk about some of the things that can be cleaned up from this game going forward, especially some things that the Chiefs are going to have to clean up for next week against the Ravens. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about the positives, Nick, because first, defensive side. The defense pretty much brought it all day long. I had maybe a little trouble early on zooming in and kind of zeroing in on the run defense, but they absolutely, 1 week after Russell Wilson lit up the Cowboys, Malik Neighbors and Wan'Dale Robinson went off, they absolutely crushed this Giants passing game today.
Yeah, I mean, because you held Russell to 160 yards and you took Malik Neighbors out of the game. So being able to do that was crucial in itself. So they made Malik Neighbors pretty much a non-factor for most of the game, and he's arguably going to be one of the top 10 receivers in the league at some point whenever he, gets a better quarterback and probably better offense overall. Because if Mahomes is able to throw that guy, I would have a lot less worries than I currently do for that Chiefs offense right now. But yeah, I mean the thing that I took away the most from the Chiefs defense is one, the hustle that they had, but how hard they continually hit throughout that game and the way that they were gang tackling to where there was two guys, one guy's going to hit him from the side, one guy's going to take out the thigh pads and on a regular basis. And then unfortunately Tracy was one of the guys who got to feel that whenever he his arm ended up getting hit in the way that it did. But that was just good physical football with the hit that Tranquil and them put on him collectively. But yeah, I thought the Chiefs defense had a really physical presence out there whenever they made guys feel it every time they caught the football.
And there was a couple of aspects of this. You tweeted this out from Next Gen Stats. The Chiefs used split safeties 78.9% of the time on dropbacks. And for those of you who don't know, what split safeties are, and you can probably describe this in greater detail, Nick, but it's essentially ways for teams to be able that what they do is they play two different coverages on each side of the field, so that you can essentially play zone on one side, man on the other. You're giving a quarterback a completely different look. And if you watched during the game, you'd even see a little bit of the kind of conceits to it. Quarterback's going to look and they're typically going to see and think, okay, this is cover 2, cover 3. But no, I mean, once you see the pieces in place, all of a sudden now you're not sure where the zone is, where the man coverage is. And that's really how they were able to take away Malik Neighbors out of this game.
Yeah, so I mean, the stat is that the Chiefs used split safety on 30 of 38 dropbacks in the win. It's the highest rate by any team in an NFL game this season. It was also the third highest split safety rate for Steve Spagnuolo as a defensive coordinator with the Chiefs since 2019. So the Chiefs defense allowed 13 completions on 24 attempts, 133 yards and interception, and it allowed them to force 12 pressures at 40%, and they were able to sack Russell Wilson twice out of split safety because they had him doubting himself. They had him unsure. They made him be able to hold on to the ball a tick longer because of that. So the Chiefs didn't use the blitz. They used the blitz a handful of times to kind of speed them up and get them into that kind of amped up thing, but they didn't use it relentlessly like they did against the Eagles. To really, so they did. Steve Spagnuolo did a really good job changing it up, making sure one, they're going to take away Malik Neighbors, and I have a sneaky suspicion whenever I know watching the coaches film that part of the reason Malik Neighbors had such a quiet night is because that split safety was designed to take him away and how they were going about it. And so Russ, who likes to cook with Neighbors, not just the people around him, but the specific wide receiver. I think that was a big part of that because they were willing to funnel everything to the middle, both in the passing game, but also in how they were going to run the football. And they found a way to really kind of defensively keep the Giants from really taking command or control of the game for the most part.
And this goes back to last offseason, Nick, as far as the Chiefs getting a long-term deal done with Nick Bolton. Yeah. Games like this are exactly why, when you hear Steve Spagnuolo talk about the fact about how important Nick Bolton is to this defense, because you can't run that defense without having communication between the mic and the defensive secondary. And also usually in that split safety look, the middle linebacker ends up playing a little bit deeper and gets a little bit more involved in some different things. And as a result, Nick Bolton, team high 14 tackles tonight. It's been a while since I think I've seen Nick Bolton with that many tackles in a game. But again, that's because of the scheme that the Chiefs were running tonight.
Yeah, they were, like I said, they weren't going to let you have the edges. If you wanted to come downhill and run down the middle and meet Nick Bolton, they were willing to accommodate you.
An all-around positive performance from the defensive side. Really, I mean, the only weak point I think you could possibly say is that there were some holes in the ground game for the Giants at times. They've been struggling this year to run the football. Cam Scatterbo, 60 yards on 10 carries, averaging 6 yards a carry. Not ideal. Chiefs gave up 89 play. I guess I'll throw a Singletary in there. They got to 100 yards rushing with their running backs. Russell Wilson threw in another 27. So the Giants ran the football a little bit. But equally impressive, the Chiefs allowed fewer yards per play per pass than they did in the run. And that's hard to do, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, from a run perspective, obviously you had Pacheco at 45, Kareem at 34, Bouchard at 13, and Mahomes, for one of the first times, only had 2 yards rushing. He was not the rushing leader, so that's a win in itself right now.
He is not going to rush for 1,000 yards this year, Nick. I think that officially is over.
Let's pump the brakes, man. There's a lot of season left.
Well, definitely a lot of season left. I mean, and maybe we can get and offensively, let's get into the positive about the offense before we, like I said, we talked about some of the things to fix.
Yeah.
Because this was a tale of two halves, and between the first half and the second half.
It was Jekyll and Hyde, man. It was as Jekyll and Hyde as it gets.
I mean, and it wasn't just effort. There was, I think, a lot more enthusiasm in the second half. There was a little bit more of, I talked during the week that I think one of the things that the Chiefs had to do in this game was let Pat be Pat, and that was the case. I mean, there was more than a few times that Mahomes was just like, okay, I'm going to find a way to get this ball and push it downfield. And he looked a lot more like classic Mahomes in the second half, I thought, tonight, Nick.
Well, a lot of that had to do with Tyquan Thornton and a little bit of Juju Smith-Schuster mixed in there. So thank goodness for Tyquan Thornton past 2 weeks, because he's been able to give Mahomes those explosive plays that he really thrives on and really kind of cranks him up to an even another level that, he's able to reach whenever he has those opportunities to really kind of hit those home run balls, or the shot plays, as people love to call them. But yeah, I mean, like, he's building that connection with Tyquan Thornton, and whenever they get Rice back to be able to work over the middle, fingers crossed on Xavier Worthy being able to stay healthy when he does get back on the football field, because the shoulder is going to be at risk all year, just because of how physical the hits he may take at some point. So you're going to be walking on eggshells on that front whenever, depending how they utilize him. But Yeah, I mean, from a passing perspective, look, they worked the ball a little bit to Noah Gray. Kelsey had a couple catches here and there whenever it was short yardage, short burst area type stuff. So, and then they got Brashard Smith involved in it. And I mean, that's fine. They used Nico Remigio on one of those jet sweeps and everything, but I would love to see more. I would love to see them threaten more with Brashard Smith down the road here, as that's where teams are going to respect that a lot more with the jet sweep and the motions and everything. But they're slowly getting part of who they are and who they should be. But they still have obviously a ways to go.
I hazard to suspect that a little bit of why we saw some different things in the second half was that the Chiefs had a lead. And they got to some of the plays on the play sheet that are, hey, we're going to run this stuff when we got a lead. And it turns out there's some pretty good stuff in there. So, I mean, they were getting to a little bit different part of the play sheet. And as a result, Matt Nagy talked this week about how that they had some packages for Brashard Smith. They had packages for Robert Tonyan.
Did he?
He did say that. Now, they didn't break out any of the Tonyan packages tonight.
Really?
But
was that asked in a press conference this week, Matt?
That was asked in a press conference this week by a very astute reporter, videographer.
I could tell he didn't like the question either. And I was like, well, I did my job.
But he answered, I mean, he gave the explanation. And I mean, and we did get to see a couple of touches for Brashard Smith, 13 yards on 2 touches. I will see more of that, because if you're going to run at 6.5 yards a clip, I would like to see more of that.
Would like to subscribe to that newsletter, Matt?
Exactly. I mean, there was a screenplay, Nick. I couldn't believe it. We finally got to see a screenplay.
Yeah, an actual screenplay was cool. The tight end screens weren't the best.
Yeah, there was a couple of the tight end screens that one to Noah Gray. I hope they just left in New York.
And a couple of those formations and a couple of those things. You know how I recognize them?
Because they've been running it for your decade.
Because they were on that 2015 cut up stuff I put together earlier this week.
Yeah, some things probably aren't surprising anybody out there. I mean, and Mahomes, his numbers look a little pedestrian: 22 of 37, 224 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, really could have had a second touchdown, because the one that Tyquan Thornton was almost a touchdown twice. And honestly, doesn't get credit for one of his best plays of the game, which was what I think was a 55-yard penalty on the pass interference throw to Hollywood Brown. And I mean, and that was another manufactured play by Mahomes. It wasn't as it was scripted, and I thought that on the opening drive, Nick, that Patrick looked like he was doing a very concentrated effort of trying to get the ball out on schedule, on time, and get rid of the ball quickly. And when they hit, but I think he was 4 of 8 on that drive. They had the last 3 passes that were incomplete. One was the double pump fake that he finally ended up throwing to Kelsey, and they were not on the same page. The other 2 were catchable balls, but they just didn't connect. And I was like, okay, I'm wondering how long is Mahomes going to remain on schedule before he just like, oh, wait a minute. You know what? No, I'm going to be Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to put my cape on, and we're going to figure out what we can do. And it pretty much started the exact next drive. Yeah.
So where are we talking about at this point in the game? Which quarter are you in right now?
I kind of went back to the beginning. So if you want to get into, kind of what went wrong in the first half?
I mean, the things that went wrong in the first half is going to start with Jawan Taylor. Like, he didn't get called for a lot of penalties tonight, but if they wanted to throw 13 to 15 flags on him, they probably could have tonight. And there was one that was very egregious, which, if I remember correctly, was on the Hollywood Brown PI whenever he was halfway to the Brooklyn Bridge, and he was actually on the ferry taking it across back to New York because of how quickly he was out of his stance. And then the other time when Brian Burns caught him whenever he was in his kick step and knocked him on his keister. And there was just a handful of other times where he was overmatched in that football game by that pass rush. And it's arguably one of the times he's looked the worst as a Chiefs offensive tackle here. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Chiefs decide to do. And the reason I say that is because you can't talk about accountability. You can't talk about cleaning things up. You can't talk about fixing things if you're just going to bury your head in the sand with what he's doing and how often he is hurting this football team right now. You don't have enough margin for error to continually let him just choose his own adventure on every single play and really derail the offense. I know they didn't necessarily call it, but there was a handful of times where he either got Patrick hit or he made Patrick get rid of the ball quicker than probably Patrick wanted to based on the play or the drop or things of that nature. And he didn't help a couple times, and Patrick threw those laterals because the way that pocket was closing in and everything. So all that collectively combined, I'm getting to a point now where they're probably going to have to make a decision at right tackle. And you can't preach to me that you're going to continue to clean things up and that's on you and that's this and that's that if you're going to continue to let him go out there and put this offense back when it doesn't have enough room to be able to have all these errors and have this lack of discipline and the sloppiness overall.
I'm going to be a little bit of devil's advocate for Jawan Taylor. So I'll probably be on an island this week on this one. There were a couple that I thought, live, I'm like, okay, that looked like a false start. And once again, we talk about it because Jawan goes off the cadence of Mahomes. He does not look at the ball. He doesn't go when Creed snaps it. He goes off the cadence because he's trying to jump as fast as he can. And sometimes if he goes off the cadence, if he mishears it, if the timing's not right, if Creed flinches for a second before he snaps the ball, it can go very, very badly for Jawan Taylor. I will say there were a couple of moments tonight that I thought live that it looked like a false start. And then when I saw the replay and slowed down a little bit, he actually timed it perfectly. Now, there were some others that I think he definitely got a head start on. But I also thought, on the Brian Burns, when he just kind of bowled him over, and it wasn't even a bull rush of any sort. I mean, he just kind of just knocked him over. But I thought that Jawan even kind of took an awkward stance, and it's speculation, but I know Jawan is not comfortable on artificial surfaces. And I'm just curious. I will be curious to see if he has a better performance coming back home next week on grass, because I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, he's very uncomfortable on artificial turf, and it looked like he had maybe some footing problems. We know that knee and that ankle has been bothering him. I think the Chiefs are going to give him some rope. I mean, I'm sure they will. They've given him almost 3 years of rope at this point. I don't know how long the rope is going to be, but I think that there will still be some rope.
I do have a question for you to push back on you.
Go for it.
Does the artificial turf also have an incline to where he's behind an illegal formation?
That not so much.
Because I'm saying that's where most of the penalties could have come from tonight if they wanted to.
And I know NBC. I know Chris Collinsworth. I'm fine with them having the graphic already about how you needed to be lined up and what it means when it's an illegal formation. But they had the wrong tackle on the graphic lined up. They should have just go ahead and built it for the right tackle. They had the left tackle lined up in an illegal formation. So felt bad about Josh Simmons there.
Well, we all have our struggles.
So coming out of this game, Nick, and especially knowing that the Chiefs have a very difficult game next week, a much more difficult game next week against the Ravens coming into Kansas City, what lessons can this team learn going forward? I mean, I think we're obviously going to be talking about mostly lessons to be learned on the offensive side of the ball from tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is it just felt like that first half, it felt like they were trying to fit square pegs into round holes, play calling wise. This is what you've done. This is how the foundation you're going to use for the game. This is how you're going to set it. And they struggled throughout the entire thing. And they had one of their worst performances, arguably, during the Andy Reid era, that outside of probably maybe that even more than probably that Chiefs Raiders game a handful of years ago on Christmas Day and around that time. It just, everybody was getting frustrated. You could see it when they'd walk to the sidelines. You could see it on Mahomes' face. You could see it when Travis Kelce and Andy Reid, had their moment that got captured on the sidelines and everything. And all that combined, like it felt like times they were underestimating how quickly that pass rush could beat their offensive line. And then other times, we'll see how the receivers are doing in some of their routes and how they were or weren't winning at the time and all that combined. And and then in the second half, they're like, all right, I'm going to go under shotgun, let Pacheco run downhill like he's actually capable of in a straight line, which is what he's good at. All right, we're going to bring the jet sweep on some of this to really kind of mix in and make it a little bit spicier. And then, you're going to give some times for Mahomes to get out of the pocket and chuck it downfield. So it just, all of it collectively combined, I felt like in the second half, they took the adjustments that people had been clamoring for, some of them that they should have done all along. And I thought they fit more of what their personnel actually is versus what they want them to be.
Yeah, looking at the first half numbers, Pacheco only had 3 touches in the first half, 3 carries for 17 yards. Kareem 4 carries for 15. Nico had that 11-yard run. And Nico has the longest run of the night for 11 yards by the Chiefs. Not the greatest stat. I think you'd rather be able to get a little bit more chunk yardage from your running backs in a game like this. And Mahomes had 100 yards passing. 52 of that was the Juju. And remember, Tyquan Thornton at the half had 1 catch for 7 yards before he just went off in the second half. But other than Juju, really, first of all, Juju has 52 yards. No one else in the first half had more than 17 yards, and that was Pacheco. It was very pedestrian numbers. And once again, there were no chunk other than the 27-yard play to Juju. There weren't any plays with just big chunk yards for this team.
Yeah. So, we'll see what happens. I don't have good answers for you. At the end of the day, they gotta get things figured out with Jawan, and they gotta either start holding some people accountable or whatever at this point. That's where I'm at.
And you mentioned the Jawan's role in the backward passes. That's another thing that, first of all, the Chiefs could have lost the game on those 2 plays alone, because in both those instances, honestly, Isaiah Pacheco just seemed to be completely unaware that those were backwards passes and live balls. And the first one, I think the Chiefs were just really fortunate that the officials basically ruled that he gave himself up.
Yep.
Because otherwise, that could very easily become a turnover. At least Kingsley Suamataia finally just grabbed the football and held on to it. But if Pacheco had been alert, if he picked it up and ran with it, he probably could have gotten a pretty good chunk of yards. The second one was even worse. The second one, that ball was turned over.
Yeah, and Mahomes had to rip it out.
I said this on our post-game show on KSHB 41. I do acknowledge and appreciate that Patrick basically acknowledging that he got a medal for putting out a fire that he started. He goes back and gets the football away. You could definitely tell that he once played, safety. He was a defender at one point in his life.
Yep. So let's wrap this thing up, Matt.
All right. I was going to say that was the last thing on my mind. Any parting thoughts, final thoughts from you, Nick?
They're playing a whole different beast this upcoming week. We'll see what the Ravens do against the Lions on Monday Night Football, but they're playing a whole different level of caliber that is not going to be anything like the Giants, and they cannot start slow. They are going to have to play at a much different game than what they did this week, and they're going to have to be less predictable in the play calling to where teams can't key on them the way that they have in the first 3 games, especially in the first half. And you can talk about starting fast, but at some point you have to actually do it. And so it's one of those things where, like you said on the post-game show, it's a show me state. So start showing me, stop telling me.
There you go. Ravens coming off a short week. They'll have that one less day of rest and on the road. We'll see if that plays into the Chiefs' hands. As always, Tuesday and Thursday night, don't miss Chiefs Digest on the Chiefs Digest YouTube channel. We'll have our live Q&A, and hopefully Nick will be able to join us on Tuesday. I always forget to ask you, Nick, if you're free before the podcast. So I need to start asking you that earlier.
Guess we'll find out on Tuesday.
It's a mystery. And then next week, after Chiefs Ravens, we will break it all down here on 41 is the Mic. Everybody have a great week. Thanks for joining us once again.
Get out of here.
You've been listening to 41 is the Mic, presented by KSHB 41, your home of the Chiefs and Chiefs Digest.